Yo, man, we avoided thermonuclear war. I thought for sure they were going to contest the election the next morning. I thought it was going to be days before we actually figured out who won. I was listening to Destiny. He was talking about why aren't they counting the votes in Pennsylvania? I thought for sure this was going to be way more contentious. I thought there were going to be riots in Oregon. I thought there was going to be riots in Washington. I thought there was going to be riots in Los Angeles. I thought all this crazy stuff was happening. And I sure as hell didn't expect him to win, by what is it, 5-6 million votes. So that part was crazy, but somehow we survived.
We did. Well, all right, I'll give you credit. But I will say that
I didn't think he was going to win by 5 million votes. I don't take credit for that.
No,
If
I
you
didn't.
had told me,
No. I thought he was gonna win. I just thought he was gonna win the way he normally does, which is honestly, I thought he was gonna win by the exact same margin that he did on this election. Just last time when he won in 2016, he basically won by the same exact margin electorally, but he lost the popular vote by 3 million. And then he lost the popular vote by like 5 million or 6 million the next time around. But it's interesting when you look at these elections, these electoral vote margins are pretty much exactly the same, down almost to the same states.
so why did you want to make this video today?
Well, honestly, it's honestly some good content for the algorithm, but I definitely think, okay, so from my perspective, I am not shocked by this result at all, but it seems like there's a lot of echo chambers out there. There's the fucking liberal campuses, there's the liberal media, there's like these news networks, and they seem shocked. And I think it's interesting because we run in a different echo chamber where we're aware of this stuff, but we know some people that a lot of people don't have access to. For me, even though I'm not a Trump supporter, I'm a liberal. Everyone knows that who's going to probably watch this. I am not shocked that he won. And I got flack for saying that I don't even support him, but for posting your prediction. Because we had the same prediction.
Yeah.
Bro, it was 100% accurate. It was 100% accurate.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, the prediction was that he would do better with Latino and African-American men, specifically because the Harris campaign did not address the issues of men whatsoever. So what happened was with Latinos, he went from 35% to 41%. When you think about how crazy that number is, especially the rhetoric that the Democrats have, he clearly hates Mexicans. He clearly hates brown people. That's why he's trying to stop you at the border. But the people who hate illegal immigrants the most are legal immigrants. People in Cuba, the Cubans in Miami were jumping up and down. For some reason, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but this is just the way the world works. Whenever I've seen legal immigrants, like my mother's a great example of this. She has a big issue with illegal immigration because she's a legal immigrant. I have many friends who are Indian who feel this way. And again, not making a moral judgment here, but that was a miscalculation. This idea that legally voting Hispanics who are often Catholic and have different values than Democrats do were just going to all vote Democrat because their skin was brown was a massive miscalculation by the Harris campaign. And then the other thing that was happening, and I call this the Myron Gaines effect, was that the manosphere, kind of ramps up 2018, 2019, and then we start seeing during the 2020 election, it was about 17% of black men and 4% of black women, which averaged out to about 13% of black people who voted for Trump. In this election, it's about somewhere around 20 to 24% of black men. I don't remember how many black women, but we're talking about
I think it's higher now. I think it's up to 30. It's pretty close. It's like 27%. So it's like 27% of black men voted for Trump, but 7% of black women voted for Trump.
So from my understanding, from my understanding, it was men under 50, it was 30%. Black men under 50, it was 30%. Like 29% of them voted. Regardless, it was a massive increase. And the reason why I said once again, and I've said this before, as men, one of the things we want to hear, Cardi B talking about broke boys, they don't deserve no pussy. I know that's right. Like the message that was consistently brought about by Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Glorilla. We underestimate like how powerful this is in the zeitgeist, and then even bigger stars like Jennifer Lopez and Beyonce. Like we have Beyonce here,
Diddy's ex-girlfriend. That's her actual name.
Right,
her name is Diddy's ex-girlfriend.
Here's my biggest issue with the whole situation with Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez makes a movie where she basically in the movie is playing the character that Cardi B was. I drug men and then I steal from them. So I forgot what the name of the movie is. It's not Showgirls. I forgot what the name of the movie is, but she does this movie where she basically plays a stripper who robs men, which is what Cardi B admitted to doing. And then she sits there and talks about protecting women when she was a party to what Puff Daddy was doing. And so it fell so short in my eyes, because as a man in general, like as a Hispanic man, I've never voted one way or the other because I'm brown. But what happened was, it felt to me like these men were being completely ignored. Like, if you want to show ultimate disrespect to men, no one is disrespecting men now today more than Cardi B, who cheated on her husband, her baby's daddy, with Stephon Diggs while she was pregnant. That is like, it's like you're disrespecting men with your rhetoric, and then you're disrespecting men with the women that you bring up there. These women glorify the felonies they commit.
You gaslight the men, right? You gaslight the men in saying they're insecure because they're voting for Trump. Look, I think the interesting thing is, like, we have debates all the time. You know, I'm not a fucking conservative. I'm a liberal. But even though I'm a liberal, I can clearly see I still have the logic to understand why they lost and to put accountability on the Democratic Party. The thing is that, you want to hear here's a great statistic. I'll send this to you. So, do you know Starr County in Texas? You ever heard of this? It's the most Hispanic county in America. 97%.
It's down by Brownsville and Harlingen and that place. Yeah.
So it had not voted Republican since 1892. Trump won this county by 16 points.
Yeah. Because here's the reason why. Why is that happening? Because the Hispanics in that county, they're the ones who are also legal. This is Starr County. The Hispanics that live in that county, or the people that live in the county, they are the victims to the violence that the people in New York, Boston, and Chicago, and San Francisco, they're not victims to this border violence. They're not victims to the same extent that the fentanyl that's coming into the country, the trafficking that was happening in the country, to those people, Texans being against illegal immigration is just an abstract idea that is only built on a Texan's racism. That is the only reason he could ever be against this kind of concept. And then you have Chuck Schumer saying, all these undocumented workers, we want to work as quickly as we can to make them documented. So now we understand the reason why we want to let these people in, or at least maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not the reason, but the messaging is fucking terrible. The messaging looks like we're losing this election, but here's a great way to win this election. We're going to get a bunch of Hispanics to come in to vote Democrat. But here's the problem. If you make these people legal, they might vote Democrat. But they're only going to do it once because they're still Catholic. And that's problematic. Catholics have a very different idea when it comes to reproductive rights. Catholics have a very different idea when it comes to the nuclear family. Catholics have a very different ideal when it comes to religion, as opposed to woke liberal progressives. And so I think that's an issue that they're going to have. You see this thing with the sanctuary cities. They were trying to have illegals go into different cities or whatever. And then eventually, we've had this discussion before when it comes to a voter ID. I think there's several countries.
I don't know how anyone could be against voter ID at this point.
Well, but most liberals, but most of the people that you're around in Harvard will say, because you're disenfranchising elderly people and you're disenfranchising people who are poor. But it's utter nonsense. I had several friends growing up that went to prison for selling crack, and all of them had an ID. They just didn't bring it with them because they didn't intend on showing it, because they didn't want the cops to get their identification. Like the idea that you can't go get an ID is like, well, these millennials aren't driving, so they're not getting a driver's license. It doesn't matter. They still have to have some form of identification. It's the standard by which we hold other people accountable. If there are other free and fair elections in other countries, regardless of what those countries are, if it's Australia, if it's Norway, it's Britain, it's Canada, or it's France, in those free and fair elections, if they are having to show an identification when they vote, that means free and fair elections can exist even with voter ID. But in the United States, we don't do so. And then you have Chuck Schumer saying, I want to turn these illegal immigrants legal. Regardless if I'm completely wrong. I'm an Alex Jones complete conspiracy theorist. This looks horrible. Yes. And this is a precursor for you getting mollywopped in an election. You didn't deal with this.
And for me, it's not even like the fact that they got mollywopped. It's the fact that they were so surprised that they got mollywopped in the first place. Yeah. I just really think... Did you see? Do you know Joe Scarborough on MSNBC?
Yeah, of course. And I just saw that. It was NASA.
Did you see this? He was like, "Well, black men voted for Trump, Hispanic men voted for Trump, white men voted for Trump. The problem is misogyny." I swear, dude, I want to punch this fucking guy in the face. I'm so angry.
There's another video right now.
That is some Chris GQ Perry shit right there.
There's another video where Joe Scarborough finds out what the cost of butter is today, and he's like shocked. He's shocked by it because he didn't realize how much butter costs. So you have to think about it from this situation. When Cardi B tells men, because you're broke, you don't deserve vagina. Those are her words. Those are not my words. When you do that, if I'm broke and I'm a man, it doesn't matter what color I am. You want to know a great way to market to men? Here's how you get women and here's how you don't get women. That switch, if you can flip that switch, you can heavily motivate men. Beer companies and cigarette companies have been doing it for years. They use the whole you can get.
If I was Kamala Harris's campaign chair, I would market it as hey, look, if we have more abortions, you're going to get laid more.
Yeah, and it's true because that's what Scott Galloway said. Scott Galloway had this incredible quote where he said, the real way, if I wanted to market to young men, it's do you want more sex? Well, the way for you to get more sex is if women think that every time they're going to have sex with you, they might have a baby, then they're going to give you less sex. And it was so funny, interesting. It was so interesting hearing him say that. But of course, what is he doing? He's saying the quiet part loud. If Democrats came out and say that, it would come off as so immoral that it wouldn't work. Or actually, it might work. I don't really know. I don't know if it would have worked. But there were so many places. I don't think they were able to stick January 6th on Donald Trump. I really don't think. I think they did a poor job of doing it. I thought maybe they could, but it doesn't seem like they did it.
I just think the way that they weren't able to stick January 6th on Donald Trump, the Republicans, ironically enough, when Afghanistan happened, all the backlash Biden got, I feel like I didn't hear about it this cycle. Really didn't. Yeah. It's kind of like the same thing. I just think it's so far back in the past where relative to the 4 years where it didn't come up. It's all
Afghanistan doesn't help their narrative because it was Afghanis who were dying. And number one. And number two, the other issue is it's causing less government spending. So the pullout of Afghanistan, even though it was done poorly, the complaint against the Biden administration.
The backlash at the time was egregious. That is where his popularity just tanked.
It was bad. I don't think it was ever as big a news story though as Roe versus Wade being repealed. I don't ever think it was that big of a news story. I think it was big. I remember being disgusted when I saw it. But I also feel like when the narrative is that Biden and Harris were trying to start foreign wars, them pulling out of a war did not aid in the Republicans' point of view. So that's why I think it wasn't used against him in this cycle. I think that wasn't a narrative that they chose. They chose some very clear, very, very easy to use narratives. 9.1% inflation during 2022. I think they were able to really pin that on Joe Biden, rightfully or wrongfully. They were able to do that. I think the Democrats did a good job of pinning Roe versus Wade on Donald Trump. I think they did a good job, but I don't think the country cared as much as people thought, because I think initially when you heard Roe versus Wade was repealed, the uneducated voter means he thinks or she thinks all abortion is illegal, and that never happened. And so that's the other issue. And then Harris tried to pin on Trump a nationwide abortion ban that Donald Trump is going to try to pass through. And Donald Trump quickly said, I'm not interested in doing that.
I don't think he himself will try to do that, but I do think the party will try to impose that on him to pass. I do think that will happen.
Go ahead.
Here's a great stat. Missouri and Arizona, right? They had their state election on the day of election day. They both voted for Trump. At least right now, as of this recording, it seems like Trump's going to win Arizona. At the same time, they also voted to uphold abortion. So that means the same people who voted to uphold abortion also voted for Trump.
Well, I think I got another stat for you. Donald Trump has probably paid for more abortions than you and I have had sex with women in our entire life. The idea that I'm sorry, I'm joking, obviously. I like Donald Trump, but the idea that Donald Trump is against abortion is hilarious. It is hilarious, bro. Again.
I do see the side of it because, yes, do I think he himself is against abortion? No. In terms of his rhetoric and his actions.
In 2008, he's raising money for Democrats. This idea that it's some religious conviction. When Roe v. Wade
got overturned, he took credit for it. He's like, yeah, I did that. So, I can see why people say that about him. But I just think the problem is, and it's funny, when I posted your prediction and then I started posting the stats of exactly what was happening because it was 100% right, I started getting unfollowed. And I'm not even a Trump supporter, and I'm just telling you my prediction. And people are just getting mad. I just don't understand. I remember I was having this conversation, and I think this was the fundamental problem. And Bernie Sanders said it correctly. It's when the middle class men and all these people voted for the other side. It cannot be because you used to say it's not the majority vote because he never won the popular vote, but now he did. You cannot say it's because 52% of the country is all xenophobic. That can't be the answer. It's because you abandoned them. You didn't appeal to them, and they voted for the other guy.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely that issue, and you can't say that. Well, you could if you really wanted to, and I do feel like that's what Joe Scarborough was saying, is that, or even Joy Behar, that yes, half of the country is racist, and they're like, I'm going to leave the country. I think that if you really put it up to them, they'd be willing to call half the country racist or xenophobic. But I mean, I think the other issue was
I'm saying if you call half the country racist or xenophobic, that's just a formula to not win an election.
No, that of course we're going to agree to that, or we're going to agree to that. But the issue is where I saw was, if you here's my advice to you: if you guys are watching this and you follow Tristan and you're at Yale, Harvard, Columbia, wherever, and you're surrounded by liberals, and you find yourself to be politically progressive, start with Scott Galloway. Scott Galloway gets it right more than he gets wrong. He's a political progressive, and he says things the way they are. Start with Scott Galloway. Listen to some Richard Reeves. I would incorporate some James Carville.
They're all liberals, by the way.
Yeah, they're all liberals. James Carville got it totally right. And I'll tell you one other person I'd listen to, Bernie Sanders. Because Bernie Sanders has been screwed over by his own party, and his explanation for why they lost, to me, it seems way more accurate. So I would go with those. I would listen to those individuals first, because when I listen to James Carville and Bernie Sanders, or mostly Carville, is like,
what does Carville have to say?
So Carville's like, this woke stuff that you're doing is not going to appeal to like a broad spectrum of people. You're not going to get someone elected president with some of these politics. Like if Kamala had come out and just basically said, hey, listen, we're going to have some boundaries when it comes to educating people about trans rights. And that boundary is 12 years old, 14 years old, something. There's got to be something, because
or the thing about like, maybe right now, like maybe we could do this while you're president, but let's not give fucking inmates sex change operations. Let's save that she later.
Said that a while ago, so I don't know. They're trying to hold her. So she's a politician. She's going to say whatever she has to say. So in front of that audience, you saw her in front of Al Sharpton saying that she's going to get reparations for black people. She would vote for reparations for black people. So she's going to say whatever she needs to say as a politician. She's not a billionaire. She has to, like, whoever she's in front of, she's going to be a chameleon to say whatever she has to say in order to get those people to vote for her. I totally understand that part. The part that the whole thing with like, I'm sure she wished she had never said the trans surgery thing for inmates, because she didn't use that as a talking point during the election. This was a piece of footage they dug up on her and used it against her, and so that's why that was so terrible. But the point is, Carville is correct. Using this woke ideology in order to try, Carville is much closer to where I am. Carville was a hardcore leftist who became a moderate leftist because the whole world shifted to the left. And so, like, you see him, he's like, dude, we need to not use this as a platform, or at least have the states individually protect. It's so funny. Conservatives don't have a problem with the states protecting their rights in certain issues. The liberals should say, hey, listen, if I'm trans and I don't feel like the state of Louisiana is protecting me, then move to somewhere else. That's what Elon Musk and Joe Rogan did. They didn't like how California was treating them, so they moved to Texas. The United States of America is 50 sociological experiments going on at the same time, and 52 if you count Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. It's 52 different sociological experiments going on at the same time. And these sociological experiments, like, for instance, what should have happened after DeSantis reopened Florida before Newsom reopened California, is we should have seen 50 million deaths, and we didn't. Right? We didn't see these mass graves that we were supposed to see. In Sweden, they tried an experiment where they weren't going to close the nation down whenever COVID happened. And when they did so, what the liberals should have seen is disaster, utter and complete economic disaster, insane levels of death. And we didn't see that. So while we could have been more cautious, like, I understand some level of a caution, what happens is the people who didn't shut down their country or their state, they weren't punished in the way that they should have been by liberals. And so now it makes liberals look wanting. And I think that was something they didn't take responsibility for it. Every state is its own experiment. And so having no state income tax in Nevada or in Texas, let's see what it does with growth. Well, people want to move their companies there. Let's see what it does in California. People are leaving the state. It's an exploratory thing. Same thing happened in New Jersey. New Jersey would raise their state income tax, and people would leave the state. And they're like, well, we have so many wealthy people, we're not worried about it. A place like New York, they can afford to raise state income taxes because their population is so massive. I understand why they would do that, but other places can't afford to do that. So I think it's really interesting the way the messaging went. Certain things stuck, certain things didn't. The economy, sticking to Biden, stuck. They did a good job on that. rightfully or wrongfully. And by the way, MIT didn't help because MIT did a study saying that it was government spending that was causing the inflation. And I told you this before. If the Keystone Pipeline is an economic disaster, own it. If not granting you oil leases.
All right. So this is the meat and potatoes of this. I get so the Keystone Pipeline, had Biden not even axed it, would not have been operational to even help gas prices by the end of his term.
Right, but what
the Keystone Pipeline wasn't going to help. And second of all,
again,
like,
Tristan,
there's also hold on. There's another Wharton study that also disproves the MIT study from what I looked at. And if you also look at the inflation rate pre-COVID and the inflation rate right now, 2%.
Sure. No, I understand
So, yeah.
that, but that's what's going to happen when you raise interest rates. The inflation rate's lower, but we pay for it with the interest rates being higher. Now, here's the thing with the whole.
I understand
thing
that, but if you look at inflation rates across the entire world, everyone was experiencing inflation to the same degree that we were. It's not like this was something that like
whole
was
world
uniquely.
well, in general, I don't know if the whole world had 9% inflation. Maybe they were. Maybe they were. I mean, I'm sure Venezuela they probably were, but okay. So now here's the issue. The Keystone Pipeline, whether or not it was producing petroleum, isn't the issue. The reason why, because I come from the futures world, I trade commodities. It's what it can predict in the future. That's what the commodities market are. As a commodities holder, I'm not actually going to hold the barrels of oil or to hold the pork bellies. I'm not there to hold the gold. What I am trying to do, though, is a contract from this point to this point, and I'm speculating on whether or not the price will go up or go down. In this case, because there's insecurity, so for instance, Chipotle, let's say they buy like 1 million tons of chicken, the commodities dealers are going to take that risk rather than Chipotle doing it because they know they're going to get a set price at the end of 6 months. When you disrupt that chain in between when the commodities contract it begins and when it expires, and by the way, you can roll those contracts over and over again every 6 months or whatever. When you disrupt that chain by depleting supply, the speculators will then change the price of oil currently in real time because of that. So if for instance, if the price of oil right now is $100 a barrel, but you tell me in the future I will not be able to get supply from here, or here, speculatively the price of these oil contracts is going to increase, and then the consumer ends up paying for it, even though in real time it hasn't happened yet. That's how the futures markets works. So I do think
I think we were operating without the Keystone Pipeline for years and through multiple presidencies, and it was fine.
Yeah, but the population increases. The population increases. Like you need more petroleum.
It has. I understand that. Now here's where I will concede this point. Here's part of the point I will concede. The fact that he axed the Keystone Pipeline, then Russia invaded Ukraine. Okay, I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
And then, not to speculate too much, but then somebody bombed the fucking Nord Stream pipeline. There was also that. So I do think with that also led to the inflation of the gas prices. But it definitely, to me, had more to do with like these corporations just extracting on the American people. Like, I don't think they needed to raise these gas prices the way they were.
So maybe that's the case, but you're going to raise or lower the gas prices based on the futures contract, or like how much petroleum is. I don't know if you know this. So the way airlines hedge against the price of oil is they spend not all, but a good number of their cash in reserve on petroleum contracts, on oil futures. Because if the price of oil goes up, their profits increase because they own the oil contracts. If the price of oil goes down, their profits increase because the price of oil goes down. So it's a hedge. It's a hedge against the volatility. In this case, like what happens is it's the speculators that are causing the price of oil to go up. It might not be the actual companies themselves, but I could be wrong. I don't really know. I don't think this idea that like people were just being gouged at the grocery store because because that's where the main complaints are. It's the price of butter. It's the price of milk going up. It's these everyday prices that were going up that was causing a problem.
Most people aren't trading commodities, right? It's like normal Americans just affected by groceries.
But commodity traders affect every single part of the supply chain, and commodities speculators cause a chain in that. I know we're getting way too in the weeds here, but I was a commodities trader for 6 years, so. Those commodity prices cause differences in the chain, and that's the problem. It's like now, in order for me to get my pork bellies, in order for me to get my platinum, in order for me to get my petroleum, if the commodities speculators think that the price is going to go up and they start buying it, I have to pay more now. The price of that deliverable good increases, and it becomes a problem for me. So I think that's kind of where we are. Yeah, by the way, commodities with precious metals is very different.
How much? Okay, this is something I actually need to fact check, but. I can't imagine that even if the Keystone Pipeline was going to be functional, and let's say it was fully functional, I can't imagine where it I don't think the Keystone Pipeline makes up 1% of the oil that we have.
Cool. Hold it. Do you know how when Elon Musk says shit, the price of Tesla goes up or down? You know what I'm talking about? It's not real. It's totally psychological. Bill Gates had a great speech about this, like how the market is irrational. You say Keystone, they hear pipeline, they see Biden. Biden pushes the button, pipeline goes away, price goes up. That's all they like. You can't. It's not more complicated than that. It doesn't make any difference.
I'm just saying. I think the gas prices would have still been high. He would still be blamed for inflation, whether he acts the Keystone Pipeline or not.
Well, okay, cool. The thing is, we're having a debate on the efficacy about where the inflation came from. My point was, inflation got strictly stamped on his ass when
we're going off on a tangent, but
yeah.
I think them stamping. I mean, honestly, there was that, and I just really think. I mean, we have to wait for the other sides to do this, but like whoever ran Trump's campaign this time did such a great job. I really believe people don't understand the impact of him going on all of these podcasts and her not going on any of these podcasts. Yeah. Let's talk about that. That to me, I just saw this coming because like after I posted my election prediction, I had some friends telling me, and we're like, dude, like, you get your points from Scott Galloway and like Richard Reeves. Like, these are podcasters. I'm like, no, fun. First off, no, they're not podcasters. They're PhDs. Professors and they're PhDs and academics who do actual research.
And neither of them have a podcast, by the way. Neither of those guys have a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. And second of all, I think Musk talked about it perfectly. He tweeted right after the election. It was a great day for America, but now is the time where citizen media is overtaking legacy media. And I think Trump got on this like the legacy media stock is here, but it's about to it's a hockey stick. It's about to implode. He got on it at the right time. Whoever told him to go on Flagrant, on Theo Von, on Joe Rogan, I really believe when the stats come out, we're going to see such a spike in the young male vote, and I really believe it was because of that reason.
Yeah, that was pretty obvious. To you and me, it was obvious because we're like near the middle, younger male voters who would also have, I mean, younger, I'm 47, but the younger male voters who would have, who still watch those things, right? If somebody comes out with, if somebody I don't agree with goes on Joe Rogan, I'm still going to watch, right? I'm still going to watch Bernie Sanders goes on Joe Rogan. We're still going to watch it. Bernie Sanders is now exposed to a moderate audience because he was willing to do that. And by the way, Bernie Sanders went on there and it made him very popular. That is a very popular podcast. Bernie Sanders on his election tour going on Joe Rogan.
No, everyone's been on there. It's like Tulsi Gabbard's been on there, Bernie Sanders, Dan Crenshaw.
Did you hear?
So many people have been on there.
Did you hear? But those people are more conservative. All of them are more conservative than Harris. Did you hear though what the constraints were for the Harris campaign?
Tulsi Gabbard sold her soul and became a Trump supporter. This is while she's in office. Well, she's like way to the left.
So my question is, did you hear the constraints that the Harris campaign put on Joe Rogan?
I believe they wanted him to fly there.
He had to fly to her.
They wanted
it was
to have
45
an hour.
minutes. Yeah, it was like 45 minutes. It was just an absurd, like the things were absurd. And like, can you imagine, like when you think of Joe Rogan on a podcast, Joe Rogan is doing the podcast and it's like Joe Rogan's home. I don't even know if it's in his home. It might be in his home.
It is in his home.
It feels like his home. His trophies are behind him. You're in a home. And it's not like he's trying to show dominance over you. What he's doing is he's like, welcome to my home. This is a place where honest thought can be. You realize that quack Grant Hancock goes on there. Like anybody can say anything they want. Alex Jones can be like, I need another shot of whiskey. And he starts talking about his dad beating the shit out of him. Like people feel open and honest to express themselves there. It's not him trying to stunt on someone. If you could think about Joe Rogan going to wherever she was, what is that saying? It's like, I am the vice president of the United States. You're beneath me. You come to where I am. This is the first time in history you've gone somewhere to do an interview, right? And now here he almost like looks smaller and in comparison to how he usually looks.
Did you see the story the next day after Trump went on where he talks about like what he was willing to do? So, okay, so it actually lined up perfectly because Trump was going to go on and then she was doing a rally in Texas. Yeah. So he was like, he was being very open. He literally said, I'm going to block out these 3 days, open invite. You want to do 9 a.m, 12 p.m., open invite. Come whenever you want. She decides not to go on. Then she decides to have a rally with fucking Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion. Yeah. Then Trump goes on. And then J.D. Vance goes on right after him.
Yeah, disastrous. Absolutely disastrous. Yeah.
I don't understand. And the other thing is like the one podcast which she did go on, I thought this was foolish. Not that I'm
Call
not
Her
gonna say
Daddy?
whether
You want to Call Her
I
Daddy?
think Call Her Daddy's a great podcast. But my point is, who watches Call Her Daddy that wasn't gonna vote for her?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
my point.
I think Call Her Daddy used to be a great podcast until they had what's her name? Hannah Montana. What's the girl's name?
Alex Cooper,
Yeah, no.
Sophia Franklin,
Miley Ray Cyrus, whatever her name is. Is that it? Miley Ray Cyrus? I forget.
Miley
Cyrus.
Miley Cyrus. Yeah,
They had Miley Cyrus on there, and she's clearly like coming down off a drug bender, and she's just spewing nonsense. And then at the end of the interview, she's like, "Oh my God, you're such an inspiration. This was so terrific." And I'm like, "That wasn't terrific. That was terrible. I don't understand." I was like, I never listened to another episode after that. I was like, "You are literally, because you like this woman, you're sitting there telling her this interview was great when it was not good. It was not a good interview." And at that point, I had lost it. The first season of Call Her Daddy was immaculate. After that, it just got so ultra woke. I just wasn't interested in hearing it. I just don't understand how people don't grasp this concept.
because it's uncomfortable for people to hear. At least when I say it like in these liberal areas, I think it's uncomfortable for people to hear that Joe Rogan has as much influence and is as popular as he actually is.
Yeah, no, that is hard
Like,
for
because
people.
like take this idea. He sits in a fucking room. He has 2 cameras with 1 sound guy, wooden table. Like our podcast studio has more equipment than Joe Rogan does.
Yeah.
And his YouTube channel does more impressions per month than some of the legacy media channels.
Yeah,
How
well,
crazy
all of
is
them.
that?
There's no
of
legacy
them.
media channel that comes in close. Yeah, you saw PBD. He passed everyone.
Yeah.
PBD passed
Joe
every
Rogan. Joe Rogan's like 20 times bigger than.
Yeah, he passed every single person. It's just really incredible, like the way this is almost like coalition of, like you said, citizen media came together to go against what they saw to be a political opponent, which was the left, and it worked out really well. Now I'm curious to see what will happen. Here's the problem, Tristan. I don't really see how the establishment in the Democrat Party comes off of these losing arguments when it comes to voter ID and trans rights. I don't see. I just don't see AOC swallowing her whistle. I just don't see that as a possibility. Like, I just don't know how that's going to happen.
So it's interesting. So from my perspective, being somebody who is, we talk about. So I think there's a difference between like the narrative of like what Kamala, for example, let's take Kamala Harris for example, right? I think there's a difference between like what the narrative of what Kamala Harris is and what she is and what she actually does or has done in her career. To me, as like for what I would want in a politician, to me she's almost too conservative. Like I wish she did more things. Like I wish she was more pro weed. I wish she didn't lock a bunch of people up. I wish she wasn't a fucking cop.
Or
Whatever
more
the
black
thing's
people
gonna
in
be.
jail, like laughed at them while they were putting in the. You want more of that? No, you want the opposite.
I want the opposite of that. Yes.
I wish
wanna
she
make
didn't
that
have
very
a
clear.
Glock. You know, all that stuff. Yeah.
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I wish she was for universal health care, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But the point is that I like in the Democratic Party, from what I see, is like there's like almost 2 factions. The Republicans, bro, if Trump fucking does anything, they will unite against him. That's the one thing they got. They are loyal.
Yeah.
With the Democrats, there's like the corporate Democrats. There's the Bidens, the Clintons, the Kamala Harris's, the Obamas, and then there's like the left wing faction of them. The problem is with that party, and you saw it with Bernie Sanders in 2020, they will never allow a populist like Bernie Sanders to win their fucking nomination.
Yeah.
The problem, though, is I do think a populist like Bernie Sanders would beat a Trump because
Correct,
more people would be appealed to him.
Correct. So one of the problems with it has to do with the fundamental understanding of conservatism versus liberalism. Liberalism includes groupthink. It has to be part of groupthink. Like again, it's not. Do you want to know who's not discriminated against at all? At all. No discrimination against this group. Bisexual women. Tell me I'm wrong. Bisexual women.
I was going to say hot women, but yeah close enough.
Bisexual women are not discriminated against. They are not, bro. I don't care what you say. Bisexual women are celebrated by everyone. The idea that we're going to put bisexual women, we're going to put them right again with trans people and queer men. No, what you're doing is why do we put them all together? Groupthink. I have friends that are homosexual men who are lawyers, doctors, accountants, et cetera, et cetera. They're gay. No one cares that gay men are successful anymore. This is not an issue in this country. You are really not that. I'm not saying in backwards Arkansas.
I want to see the stats about the gay guys. I want to see if the gay guys
but you'll never see those stats. You'll never see those stats. And I'll tell you why, Tristan, because the only stats that are allowed to be printed now are LBGTQ stats, never gay stats. You'll never see lesbian stats anymore. You remember PBD?
Really?
He was talking
even in the census, like when it's going to come out 10 years later.
When you go to PBD, when you watch PBD was talking about. Do you see now 20% of these young children are saying that they identify as LBGTQ? The country's getting gayer. No, that's not what's happening. The amount of homosexual men, I promise you, because it's a genetic proclivity, is almost exactly the same as it was 50 years ago. Now, maybe more of them report being gay than openly report being gay, but the amount of homosexual men being produced through genetics is the same. Probably the same thing with lesbian women. But trans is a decision. That's what trans means. Trans means you're moving from one place to another. You're transitioning. The decision to transition is a decision. The decision to be homosexual is not a decision, just like the decision to be black is not a decision. And so part of the problem is what they're doing is they're taking these people who made a decision to be in the LGBT community, trans people, and they're conflating them with the people who didn't make a decision, which are gay and lesbian men and women. And so if I was a gay man, I would say, fuck this. I don't want to be part of this community anymore. This is, you guys are dragging me into, if I'm a gay man.
Well, part of their argument is that being trans isn't a choice, right? Isn't that part of their...
No, transitioning is a choice. I mean, they can make that argument. And by the way, I'm not even saying I'm not even saying identifying as a woman when you're a man or feeling like some sort of gender dysmorphia is a choice. Maybe it's not a choice. I don't know. But what I do know is this. If I am
the decision to physically transition is a choice.
If I'm a lesbian couple and I've adopted a daughter and you're telling me that my daughter is going to be exposed to like guys sucking on a fucking banana and like going to parades where there's dudes pulling her dick out, I'm sorry. Even if I'm a lesbian couple, I care about my daughter. I don't want that happening. Like what I feel is like there are some like moderate, logically thinking people who are gay, bisexual, and lesbian who don't want to be a part of this nonsense. And they're getting drug in. And the way they're getting drug in, groupthink. It's not L, it's not G, it's not B, it's LBGT. We're all together, one big family, and you can't separate us. And if you could separate us, you know what you'd find? You'd find that the majority of the increase is trans. It's not going to be lesbians, it's not going to be gay people, it's going to be trans people. That's what happens. I'm not going to go as far as Rollo. He says you're not trans, you're just gay and boring. That's how he describes it. But the issue is, I'm not, by the way, no issue with trans people whatsoever from my side.
None whatsoever if you're watching this. I have no issue.
The problem is, don't tell me that you're going to take away the parent's right to not give a child hormone blockers, puberty blockers. That's the part I have a problem. I don't even want, whether or not my child gets gender affirming care should be my decision. Even if I live in San Francisco, it should be my decision as the parent. And they want to take that away. Regardless, let's say I'm completely wrong about this. 200 years from now, someone looks at this video and cancels Michael Sartain. I can't believe you're against gender affirming care, you bigot. Even if I'm completely wrong, in 2024, this is a sinking ship. This is an anchor that is dragging you to the bottom, and you need to figure out a way to at least curtail it, or because that's the problem. The Democrats they're being drug around like a Iditarod by the most liberal people in their party. AOC should have a place in the fringe of the Democrat Party. She should not be a major speaker in it. Neither should Nancy Pelosi. They should not be major speakers in the party. More level-headed individuals should be able to do that. And by the way, Republicans have the same issue. I
don't think they have it to the same extent that the Democrats do. But
I have a problem with the fact that Alex Jones is like 2 heartbeats away from the president of the United States. Alex Jones right now could call the president of the United States anytime he wanted. Anytime he wanted. Again, don't hate Alex Jones. I definitely don't want Alex Jones in charge of it.
Yeah, there's other people. I won't say their names on this podcast, but there are other people that we know personally who are also one phone call away from the president-elect. Hold on a second.
The other thing is the idea of RFK Jr. becoming like the head of the FDA.
My God, bro. I hope he doesn't put this fucking clown into office.
Here's the issue. Most of you who are watching this, even if you support RFK, the problem is you didn't know who he was 4 years ago. You didn't know who he was 2 years ago. You had no idea. He just came on the scene.
You hear that he's a Kennedy, and that's all you need to hear.
And he is literally in the place that he is because he's a Kennedy. I'll say this, and I know my Republican friends are going to hate me for it. Hydrochloroquine and ivermectin did nothing to slow the spread of COVID. I'm going to say this again. Hydrochloroquine and ivermectin they are dewormers. They are anti-parasitic medications. COVID is not a parasite. One more time. COVID is not a parasite. It's a virus. These are anti-parasitic medications. They did nothing to stop or slow the spread of COVID. And when he talks about specifically in his tweet that he came out with, we're going to uncover the mysteries of hydrochloroquine and ivermectin. It's scary to me. That part is a little bit frightening. And some of the people that are going to have the access to the president of the United States. But I do think.
Well, wait, here's the other problem. Here's the other problem. He's not somebody, because I've actually studied RFK for a while.
Yeah.
I really think this is a guy who, like, okay, imagine this, right? You are born into a Kennedy. You're basically America's royal family. You have every resource. Your father probably was going to become the president. You have all this ability for your entire life to create impact on people, and you don't do any of that.
That part is like, so I don't want people to come on here and think that I'm just all pro-Trump and Republican. I see flaws in both parties. I said Trump to me is a 7 out of 5 out of 10, maybe a 7 out of 10 as far as what he does. I do think as far as the content creator, he's the greatest thing ever. He's the greatest thing ever as a content creator. I'm so happy.
Trump got the COVID vaccine in secret. You know how when the COVID vaccine was coming out, like every president was getting a video of it. Like every president was doing it, and he's just
his daughter didn't. His daughter got it on camera. Remember that? And
his daughter got it on camera.
You guys want to see
he alludes to it in like a speech one time. And he's like, "Yeah, vaccine's good. I got it," and then he booed and he just moved up.
Because it's a losing argument for him. It's losing. I think RFK was a little bit more, because of his popularity, was useful as an endorsement, and I think that might be the end of it. I don't know. I could be wrong.
What he did, though, was because Biden's an unpopular president. I actually wonder if this was a psyop, right? Because Biden's a very unpopular president, and what do you do with an unpopular president? You try to primary him or take some votes from him. That's what they did with Lyndon B. Johnson. He runs as a Democrat, knowing he's going to lose, but he siphons votes and then takes those votes and puts them on Trump.
Could be. I think you'd have to get some independent people, but I don't know many people who were going to vote for RFK but not Trump. There might be some. I don't know. That's an interesting thing. But yeah, I mean, I think we kind of. I think the issue is, I made a video about this. It came out today. There's 4 concepts. The first concept is messaging. The second concept is delusion. So delusion would be like Joe Scarborough.
We did messaging. Let's do delusion, because I do want to talk about the whole reason I want to do this is like, why did she lose? Why did she lose?
So delusion is Jimmy Kimmel, Joe Scarborough, and Van Jones. That's an example of what delusion looks like. This is not. So what they say is, this is a referendum on messaging and not a referendum on ideas. No, it's a referendum on your ideas. The idea that women could not, of their own volition, vote for Donald Trump because in doing so they're not protecting other women that's a referendum on that idea. You thought that idea was going to carry the day, and it didn't. And so now your response is, well, I guess the problem is people are racist and bigot. No, your idea did not carry the day, and they are delusional when it comes to that. Again, Van Jones. How does the rest of the world, and especially black women, not see this is a black woman running for president? Well, because the rest of the world didn't see her as a black woman. That's where the messaging and the idea did not carry the day, and Van Jones has a hard time understanding it. And so Joe Scarborough, I mean, he's just beyond delusional. He just says the most nutty stuff I can ever imagine. And I just don't know if he's doing this because he truly believes it, or he's doing this because he's on MSNBC. I don't know why, because that part is maddening to me.
Bro, I hope. Look, Van Jones. All I can say, I hope he's getting paid. I hope he's getting paid real good to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see in 2020 when he cried?
Yeah, he cries every time. He cried in 2020, and he cried in 2024. He goes, I just thought that we were past this and that America got better. And I'm like, guys, everybody who's watching this, here's what I want you to take from this. Don't be Van Jones. By the way, don't be Alex Jones either. Don't be so married to your political beliefs that when your candidate loses, you cry. You should be so robust that if your wife leaves you, you're like, good. If you have a problem with this,
Become anti-fragile.
Become Jocko Willink. Become anti-fragile. If your wife leaves you, good. Your business goes bankrupt, good. You need to become anti-fragile and stoic. All this stuff, the APA talking about stoicism being a harmful form of masculinity. No, stoicism is what makes people get up off their ass after failure and continue to compete instead of delusion. Whatever Joe Scarborough believes that happened during that election, his current beliefs now are not helping his party at all. at all, because he's not willing to address the problems that are happening. Whereas Bernie Sanders and Scott Galloway are willing to address
Like,
the
even if you don't
problems of the party.
support Bernie Sanders, you have to have some modicum of respect for the fact that he actually took responsibility. He was like, yeah, like we fucked up. We abandoned them.
Yeah.
And that's why we lost. I think this delusion, I specifically want to go into, because like I want to make it very clear, I'm not like anti-feminist or anything. I believe in all of these movements, like what they're for and for abortion, all this stuff. But I do believe that, like, I think Rollo and like, you know, like Jordan Peterson kind of say this as like it's something nefarious with feminism, like it was a harmful movement from the beginning. I just think it was an unintended consequence, as Richard V says. So, you know, certain advancements happen to women that ultimately disenfranchise certain subsets of men. But when you act like those men, like you don't
deserved
even
it, don't exist.
Yeah, like you didn't even ostracize these men. You didn't like believe that they even existed. Yeah, and
you
we
didn't
see
believe
it
they
every
existed.
Thursday when we do this podcast.
And by the way, them taking their own lives didn't matter to you in the slightest. Oh, boo-hoo. You've been in charge for so long. So what? You're 9 times more likely to kill yourself after you've been zeroed out in divorce. And I'm like, bro, that's sad. That's really serious. But anybody who, like, I would love to see Joe Scarborough go to like Skid Row or go to like a soup kitchen and see, wait, these are all men. These are all men that are homeless. These are all men that have been zeroed out.
I want Joe Scarborough to come out with us to like access with all of our friends and dare fucking say that black men, Hispanic men, and white men were just all misogynist. Bro, oh my God. That really pissed me off.
Yeah,
it was madness, bro.
They had to do it, and it's so funny. And I don't think we're going back. So I will say this.
Here's a stat. Here's a stat. As of right now, from what I last saw this morning, 44% of women voted for Trump.
44%. Wait, so that means 54% of women voted for... Oh, 44%. So 54% of women voted for Harris?
Correct.
Or 56?
The way they frame it.
Wow.
But therefore, 44% of women must hate women and must be internalized misogynists.
Wow. That's pretty... I knew it was more for Harris, but that's crazy. That's way closer than I thought.
It's almost as close as the popular vote proportion. Like, it's pretty fucking close.
Yeah. Wow. That's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. Talking about delusion. Another thing that the media did, at least from my perspective, before the election even happened, was, okay, I don't believe, like, contrary to what our friends say, I don't believe, like, it was this grand conspiracy to get Biden out the whole time and they were trying to usurp him the entire time. No, I genuinely believe he wanted to run. He came to his fucking senses. They were going to all call on him to resign, and he resigned. That's what I think happened. My point is, you put her in, and look, I don't care what anyone fucking saying this, like, anyone watching this says, like, she was not a good candidate to be president. She's not a popular candidate the first time. She was picked as VP, not sure why, was a VP that was, like, had the lowest approval rating since Dick Cheney. And they thought this is a good woman to just shoe in for the nominee, and she wasn't even elected to do so. And they thought she was a good candidate. She's not good at public speaking. She doesn't do fucking interviews. I just think that the media also gaslit the American people. Like, I even see it like when I'm around here. Like, okay, I understand, like, Biden did, for what it's worth, Biden does actually have, like, a base of people who do love Joe Biden because he's been around so long, VP for Obama and everything like that. But then immediately when she drops out, there's always like these like, I see some Harris Walls people. I'm like, and they were saying like, oh, like she's a great candidate for president. Like she should have been there the whole time. I'm like, are you serious? Like, how ignorant are you? Like, she was not a good candidate. They did not run or pick a good candidate to go against Trump.
They picked her. Well, you remember Joe Biden said, I'm picking a minority woman before he even picked her.
He said he was picking a woman, and then she happened to be minority. But
okay, I thought he said minority woman.
No, but the thing is, the media gaslighting you for doubting her candidacy and uplifting her as this ultra qualified candidate when she had the nomination for 3 months. I think that was ridiculous. Like that was a level of delusion.
Well, I mean, I also think it's it reminds me of the Cowboys right now. Dak Prescott's hurt and they got to play with Cooper Rush, and when they lose, then they're going to just say, well, it was because of injuries. Like, I just think it's one of these situations where they maybe should have polled their candidates, and maybe Gavin Newsom does better. I don't know what's going on.
I mean, in retrospect, I mean, it was going to be a fucking shit show. Like, I definitely don't think if Biden stayed in that he would have won. I think Trump probably would have won by more. Maybe they could have done an open convention, but the idea that, like, the way they gaslit you into thinking she was a good candidate for president also fed into this. So she does that. She does no interviews. My favorite part, this is my favorite part. Have you ever seen when she code switches? That shit is so funny, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's bad to code switch. You know who code switches a lot? Obama. He code switches like a motherfucker. He was just on Tyrese Halliburton's podcast talking like he's from Southside of Chicago, but she's not good at code switching. That's the problem. She's like,
hey, yeah. You know what?
Hey,
she's about to get kicked out of government housing. She's black today. You know, Coach, so she knows she's black today. When she gets, by the way, people forget, she's not in the White House. She lives at the Naval Observatory. That's where so she's about to get kicked out of government housing. She turned black all of a sudden. Right? She knows what it feels like to be black now. So this is the thing, man. Going back to this situation. So first we talked about messaging. Second, we talked about delusion. With delusion, it's one of these things is like, what part of your messaging worked, what didn't, and what feedback can you take? Like, I would never want to run a business with Joe Scarborough. You means you can't take feedback. I would never want to run a business with Van Jones. You can't take feedback. Those people I don't want to work with. I would never want to be in a business relationship with them. I could maybe be friends with them if they were interesting, like dinner party friends, but I can't deal with people who cannot take feedback. There's two other things, right? One of them we already talked about, which was the concept of being anti-fragile. But here's the last one, and this one's really important. It is the echo chamber, and that is the fact that when I tried to get liberals to come on Access Vegas, I couldn't find any, and I was like, okay, something's wrong here. I know there's a lot of liberals out here, and then I would look at my
Vegas
IG.
Was the blue county of Nevada.
I'm looking at my IG, I was going through all the stories or whatever, and it's just one large-breasted blonde woman who votes for Trump after another, and I'm like, these aren't all my friends. And then I start to realize, I understand what's going on now. The algorithm thinks less of me. They think I'm low IQ, and they think that I only want to see things in the algorithm that reconfirm my own beliefs. So that's why I listen to you. So my friend Dylan Radigan is a co-host on, he's sometimes a guest host on the Young Turks. And I listen to It's Just Banter. They have kind of socialist viewpoints, the guys who host It's Just Banter. And then I watch
me every day.
I watch you. Yeah. And then I also watch Truth or Skepticism, which is a podcast with Dylan Radigan and Tom Sosnoff, and it has a pretty leftist bent to it. The reason why I do this is because I want the algorithm to say, hey, this guy's a little bit more open-minded. Stop only showing me things that agree with my viewpoint. I want to get as much Richard Reeves and as much Scott Galloway.
Like, I think like when you are in this red pill manosphere space, it also does the same shit. So.
Yes. So, but the echo chamber is not conservative liberal. The echo chamber is whatever it is that you're into. So the echo chamber could be pro-women, anti-women. The echo chamber could be red pill, blue pill. The echo chamber could be Republican, Democrat. There's and then there's a tradcon echo chamber that also exists, and probably an atheist echo chamber. There's these echo chambers that they put you inside of, and you're stuck there. And the algorithm knows that the most efficient way to get the most people to stay on the platform is for every time they open up something, they see something they agree with. And as long as they keep seeing something they agree with, they get this dopamine rush and this, oh yes, I'm right. Everything I was thinking was right. And then they keep coming back. All of you watching this, you're in an echo chamber. Now, Tristan's podcast isn't big enough right now to where I'm sure the algorithm doesn't know where to put you, but at some point it will. Right now, you guys need to make sure, I like go off and specifically subscribe to podcasts that I don't really care about that much, because I want the algorithm to say, hey, this person is more open-minded. Let's show him things that he might disagree with and listen to viewpoints he might disagree with, like Destiny. Like Destiny is a great example of someone. Jasmine Jafar is another example. Somebody that I'll subscribe to. I'll at least listen to their viewpoints, even though often I don't agree with them, because I don't want the algorithm to stick me in the echo chamber. When I talk to people who supported Biden, they couldn't find or supported Harris, they couldn't find, a single Trump supporter. I can't imagine how anyone would vote for Donald Trump.
Ridiculous.
And when I talked to Trump supporters, they were like, I don't know, are you kidding me? We're gonna win this election 100 million to nothing. I don't know a single person who would ever vote for Kamala Harris. And it was so crazy to me. I was like, that's not how the world works. And then I started to realize, oh shit, we're all in an echo chamber. We don't realize we're in an echo chamber right now. We have to get out of it. That's the problem. And so I highly recommend all of you who are watching this to go and just jump on the Young Turks. Just go check out fucking MSNBC for a second. Or if you're a liberal, maybe watch an episode of Joe Rogan with I promise you, whoever, if you're a fundamentalist Christian, maybe you go watch some Neil deGrasse Tyson. Maybe you should watch some like scientific stuff. And you're a hardcore scientist, atheist, maybe you listen to somebody like, who's religious. Maybe you take a second to go do that. And the reason why I'm saying is because if you don't, you're stuck in your echo chamber and you're actually a sheep. Regardless, even if your echo chamber, everything in your echo chamber is factually correct. Your echo chamber is literally natural selection combined with Newtonian physics, like utter and complete objective truths. Even if that is your echo chamber, you're still stuck. You're still a sheep. That's the problem. Get out of your echo chamber.
Yeah. And talk about echo chamber. I do think, I hate this term, but like, I think people are waking up because, look, I love you guys if you're watching this, and I'm not going to put any of you on blast, but even though there was like this delusion about like this Harris movement and all this stuff, and like people were fucking crying and shocked that she won, I wasn't shocked at all. I predicted he was going to win. We predicted he would win in the same fashion that he won. I have never seen so much underhanded Trump support on this campus. I never have seen it.
At Harvard.
Like, at Harvard. Yeah. I think because I don't think I express that much my political views that much, but I'm a pretty outspoken guy. I give myself permission, as we say in MOA, and I fucking say what I need to say. And I think people are just more comfortable around me. But man, I haven't seen so much, like, underhanded, silent majority disdain for the left. Even here. So
how do they communicate with you so we can snitch them on them? Let's find so we can Anne Frank them. How do they? somebody at your school is going to hear what you just said and like, let's figure out. Oh, they're in this hall, the college Republicans. Let's break them up. Let's figure out where they are. How did you figure out that there was?
Funny enough, there is a room here that we actually do also tend to speak in sometimes. It's actually really funny. It's just like when. Like when we go out to a nightclub, right, and like we're around girls and stuff, you know that term we always say, it's like when women are surrounded by so much beta, they crave alpha. It's actually analogous to this. When people are surrounded by so much wokeness, they crave logic. I don't portray in wokeness. I just kind of say things how it is. I'm not offending anybody, but I just speak the truth. And I attract a lot of people to me who are just comfortable saying it around me. So I just, I get these underhand comments who are like, yo, Tristan, Trump 2024.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but like the other thing is like talk about the delusion. Like if you had a candidate like Kamala Harris or like even like Joe Biden in 2020, where it was basically they want Medicare for all. Actually, they didn't want Medicare for all. They want a public option. They want to invest in infrastructure, and that's it. And they want to get out of Afghanistan, but they don't talk about transgender sex operations. They're not talking about pushing this in school. If you take out all of the woke shit and you just focus on that, how many Americans would be in favor of that?
Yeah, I don't know how Trump would have stood up to that, to be honest with you. There would be enough Americans in the middle to actually, it would have been a serious problem, because what you did was you hurt your own party and you fueled his. Yeah, your wokeness, like, regardless, I don't care.
The wokeness killed this election. The wokeness killed the Democrats' chance.
If you put two scarecrows up there, but one of them is in favor of what the Democrats are in favor of, I'm going to vote the other way. That's the problem. You put the poison pill in your arena. And the thing is, if Donald Trump had actually said, "Hey, we're gonna create a nationwide abortion ban," then I could definitely see that hurting him. And maybe I'm totally wrong, and he fully intends on doing that. The thing is, he didn't bring it up during the election, did he? He did a good job of making people feel like he wasn't going to do that. And so because of that, I think his messaging worked better in the election. Guys, you have to remember, the truth, we'll get to the truth. 50 years from now, we'll figure out what the truth is. Right now, it's just messaging. So again, messaging, number one. Number two, looking at delusion. Number three, are we anti-fragile? And number four, are we stuck in an echo chamber? Those are the things you have to look at. You need to be above this election. I think you need to be above. Marcus Wolf said to me yesterday, he goes, American Politics is my favorite TV show. It's like, you need to be above this and like say, understand, hey, no matter what happens, look, realistically for you and me, Tristan, like our tax bracket's going to go up or down just a little bit. It's not going to matter. You're probably not going to have any more girls get abortions for you than you've already had. You know what I'm saying? It's you're probably at the limit for your abortions for the year. It's probably what happens in the next 4 years is not going to affect you a ton. Like, okay, maybe you might get drafted. Oh, actually, no, you're not getting drafted now. Things that may be a little different, but for the most part, it's not going to be that big of a difference. And it's so funny because I don't remember who ran for mayor. I don't remember who ran for, city prosecutor, district prosecutor. I don't remember who ran for judge or for judgeship here. I don't remember any of these things. I remember who ran for president, and that person has the least effect on me of probably anybody. I will say one thing, and this is another big topic for me, is as a content creator, is I am hoping in the next 4 years that these big tech platforms stop siphoning off my engagement because I say things they don't like. I hope that's the case. I don't know if it's the case, but I really do hope that they start to see, hey, the government's going to come after you if you just start deplatforming people because they have conservative beliefs. I've been demonetized for absolutely no reason whatsoever. I've been demonetized on YouTube. It's completely absurd. And it's been so because of I know it's because of my association with, Myron Gaines and Rollo Tomasi. So it's preposterous. I hope we can bring an end to that. And the other part is this with the free speech argument. I think a lot of people don't understand. Free speech includes Kamala Harris saying there are no troops for the first time in history. There are no troops deployed in foreign war zones.
I remember seeing that live.
Right. But the thing is, when she says it, she has the right to say it because of free speech. She has the right to say things that are wrong. Just like, what's his face? Alex Jones has the right to say what he thinks about Sandy Hook, but the people in Sandy Hook have the right to sue him. Both components are free speech. Does that make sense? The president of the United States, if he wants to sue as a private citizen, if he wants to sue a news media organization because he feels like they falsely defamed him, that's also free speech. People think free speech is always good, right, fair speech all the time. Free speech is also people exposing themselves. That's why it's so important. I want to hear some guy explain to me how the planet is 5,000 years old and natural selection isn't real. I need to know that so I know to not vote for him. All of you, I don't care if you're wherever you're at, I don't care if you're the most woke person listening to this at Harvard. You need to be in total support of free speech. You don't understand. Liberal democracies don't work otherwise. You become Venezuela or North Korea. You have to allow free speech. One of the craziest things that happened to me this week, Tristan, is that when Elon Musk goes on Joe Rogan and says thousands of people have been put in jail in the United Kingdom because of social media posts, I said, wait, stop, pause. I'm going to go to Grok. I'm going to go to Meta AI. I'm going to go to ChatGPT and Perplexity. And I'm going to ask this question. Is it true that thousands of people have been put in jail because of social media posts? And Meta AI wrote back to me and says, no, that is a gross exaggeration. Thousands of people have not been prosecuted because of social media posts. And then I said, how many people have been prosecuted because of social media posts? And in the same breath, it says 3,395 people have been prosecuted because of social media posts. And I said, you just said thousands of people weren't prosecuted. And it goes, sorry, my mistake. I guess that it was crazy. I was like, what in the world?
So the AI lied.
Yes, the AI legitimately lied to me, dude. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. When I go on Grok, it said 5,500 people have been prosecuted in the United Kingdom because of social media posts. Guys, we watched Trudeau do this in Canada, and we watch what this administration, this super liberal administration is doing in the United Kingdom. And as a result, they don't have freedom of speech anymore. These are liberal democracies where you cannot say what you think. When you say things, even when they're not true, you expose yourself, which is why we should always be in favor of free speech. You can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. Yes, I totally understand that. And you can't say someone has a disease or is a criminal when they aren't. Or rather, you can, but you also get to suffer the consequences of it. The idea that in the United Kingdom, you go to jail for making homophobic slurs. Let me say that a second time. In the United Kingdom, you go to jail for making homophobic slurs. That is not me making this up. Stop what you're doing right now and look up the new free speech or the hate speech laws that are in the United Kingdom. You go to jail for, I don't use homophobic slurs. I'm not saying it's because it's inconvenient to me, but I don't think anyone should go to jail for making homophobic slurs. I don't think someone should go to jail for denying the Holocaust. I don't think someone should go to jail for saying we didn't land on the moon, but I'll debate them. will debate them, but I don't think they should go to jail. That is madness. That is not how a liberal democracy works. And so because of that, that was singularly for me, that was the biggest one. I hope in the next 4 years, I have the freedom to say what I want to say about the fact that men and women are different. They have dimorphic differences, which we clearly spell out in evolutionary psychology. And I hope that I'm not canceled. I'm not going to get canceled for it, but I will get ratioed. And I've been ratioed on TikTok. TikTok's hopeless, but I'm hopefully YouTube and Instagram will allow me to say things that are objectively true.
Right. No, I totally understand that. And when it comes to like that delusional aspect of it, I think we were talking about this on your group call the other day about like this. I mean, I hate to say it, but like this kind of feminist nonsense about like women portraying themselves as the victims and men are just all the enemy. Do you feel like that also played a role as well?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go back to the women being the victim. So the way women are being taught right now through academia and big tech is that men are either Homer Simpson or they're Ted Bundy. They're either incompetent or they're dangerous. That's what they're being taught. And so when they're incompetent or dangerous, I can't depend on them. If I can't depend on them, who and what can I depend on? I can depend on myself and female intuition. So now the world, their whole belief system is governed on female intuition. Female intuition, I'm not saying it has no place in the world, but it doesn't build buildings. It doesn't build roads. It doesn't put ships into space. Sorry, flat earthers, there is space. It doesn't do those things. Female intuition doesn't do those things. Logic, reason, and accountability do those things. And so by saying men are unaccountable, men are not dependable, and that men are dangerous, what happens is now the only thing that's left, like how is it that we show that message and make women follow us? Because that's what we're teaching women. Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, we show Glorilla, J-Lo, and Beyonce. That's how we show all these women.
Chris GQ Perry, don't forget.
Men ain't shit. Dude, I'm surprised Chris GQ Perry wasn't like Secretary of Agriculture under, bro, are you serious? Dude, did you see those videos of him talking about you aren't a man enough to step up to be to date a woman who has a child? Oh, if you date a single mom, good for you, bro. If you find love wherever you can find it. But you're not better than me because you dated a single mom. That doesn't make you better than me. That is madness, bro. When I was looking at that stuff, I was like, how is this guy? This is the new Secretary of Health right here, Chris GQ Perry. It is so crazy to me that we see these narratives.
Chris GQ Perry is going to have like a podcast on CNN with like Van Jones and Joe Scarborough.
So the reason why I don't think he will is because he's like, do you remember one of my favorite players of all time? Or like, do you remember, let's just say like Peyton Manning. You know Peyton Manning couldn't move. He wasn't, if you left Peyton Manning, you gave him a clean pocket, he would tear you apart.
A spiral.
Yeah. Okay. Peyton Manning, if you gave him a clean pocket, he would tear you apart. But if you actually opposed him, he would have some trouble, right? That's the same thing with Chris GQ Perry. Chris GQ Perry could never do a show where people had opposing viewpoints. If anyone like applied statistics to him, he would crumble. Same thing with Joe Scarborough. He would crumble. That's why Joe Scarborough can't even make it on CNN because CNN there's opposing viewpoints. MSNBC, the only opposing viewpoint is Rachel Maddow. He doesn't have he can sit back in the pocket all day and just throw dots down the field because there's no one in his face. Chris GQ Perry could never function in an arena of ideas, nor could Kamala Harris, which is why she didn't go on Joe Rogan. And that's the problem. You have to be able to function in an arena of ideas, which Bernie Sanders could do. James Carville could do those things. That's the reason why Scott Galloway, he can function in an arena of ideas. These other people cannot. They can't function in an arena of ideas. In fact, I mean, Biden near the end, he couldn't do it either. And that wasn't his fault. I mean, it was obviously dementia. But like, he couldn't function in an arena of ideas. That's what you have to do as a politician.
2012 Joe Biden, I think he would have went on.
2012 Joe Biden he was a all pro. Like that was, I watched that debate where he dismantled those dudes. You're right. He was sharp. I didn't agree with him, but he was sharp. He was really sharp.
He for sure would have went on Rogan if he wasn't in.
2012 Joe Biden would have gone on Rogan. He would have had Joe Rogan laughing his ass off. And by the way, I'm going to say something else. Joe Rogan, because I've done the same thing. I've had people on who I vehemently disagree with on my show. Horribly disagree with. And I've had them on my show. And when I had them on the show, I was respectful to them and I treated them like a human being and tried to have a conversation with them. And I absolutely am telling you, that's what Joe Biden would have done to Kamala Harris. He would not have been disrespectful to her in the slightest had she come on the show. It was a horrible, horrible miscalculation on her part by not going on that show.
And I don't like this fucking narrative that Joe Rogan was like making it hard for her or was like working against her. It's like, no, he gave them all the same rules. Here's, you know something, Mike, a lot of people don't know this. Do you know that he denied Trump twice for an interview?
Because Trump had certain stipulations for going on the show. By the way, That's the same thing with Andrew Tate. By the way, Andrew Tate said he's coming back to the States. Andrew Tate told me this personally. He wrote me on WhatsApp one time, and he said, I said, hey, man, I'm hosting this event. If you want to come, blah, blah. This is before he was super famous. And he goes, I'm not coming back there to the States unless Donald Trump gets elected again. That's what he told me. And so now Donald Trump got elected again. We might see Andrew Tate back in the States. It'll be crazy. He's going to end up speaking at some rally. People will be going freaking crazy for him. It's going to be nuts. So we'll see what happens there.
1,000%. Do you think, I guess going forward, at least this is the way I look at it. Actually, I sent you, I don't think you were able to watch, but I sent you a TikTok that this liberal girl made. And she said, hey, the Democrats, they completely fucked up their narrative. It's completely our fault. Here's what, hey, masculine men, here's what you need to do. You guys need to step up.
Start your own podcast.
Start your own podcast. And we need more masculine men who aren't woke to start talking. I'm like, that's spot on. Because I think the Democrats could win every election if they just stepped away from wokeness. They would keep their donors. They would still support corporations. They could win fucking every election. I think Joe Biden winning in 2020 had to do with the fact that enough people remembered he was an establishment candidate. Like, nobody believes he's for gay marriage. Nobody believes Joe Biden cares about trans people. No one believes that. Who believes that?
Joe Biden's daughter brings home a black man. You think that look on Joe Biden's face is like,
come on. What do you think, bro? Come on.
You guys know Lyndon Johnson really did love Martin Luther King. You guys know that, right? He's from South Texas. He loved the shit out of him. Come on, man. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I think that's interesting for sure. I'll tell you one thing. Other way they could have won. Just have a bunch of Mexicans go up to these voting places without an ID and just vote. That's another way they could win every election if they did that shit. Arizona won by 74 percentage points. So it's kind of strange. Kind of a flip there in Arizona. New Mexico, 4.6 million voters for Joe Biden in Arizona, New Mexico. It'd be so funny. Texas,
yeah.
4.
Why do you think? Why do you think with the way the Democrats campaign, like, I feel like people forget. Like, I don't care what one of my conservative friends watching this thinks. Like, the fucking election of 2020 was not stolen. Joe Biden won the election. I don't care what anybody says.
I agree.
Why?
I think Trump did a poor job of being a centrist in that election. Yeah.
No, but my point is, that's really egregious for a president. Like, if Obama fucking did that, or John McCain did that, or Mitt Romney did that, or somebody, or George Bush did that, they would be appalled. Why do you think the Democrats weren't able to leverage the fact, like, this dude literally tried to lie and steal an election and deny the results of a free and fair election, and he still won? Why do you think they weren't able to leverage that as much?
Because their followers think that really, dude, Twitter, it's maybe it's a red herring, but the whole Twitter files thing really did give some credence to there being some interference. Not that the entire election was stolen, I agree with you, but it was such a big deal that they had these 50 intelligence agents sign off on the idea that this laptop was fake when it wasn't fake. That is a huge deal because it requires a level of collusion. This is not negligence, it's nefarious. And Joe Biden had something to do with it. Now, realistically, we're talking a point or two maybe. The fact that, dude, Bill Clinton had a fucking weirdo brother, Dick Cheney had a lesbian daughter, the fact that Joe Biden had a son that did crack, no one cares. No one gives a shit. I don't think it would have changed the election. But it did show that there was clearly some election interference. And if there's smoke, there's fire. And it just wasn't enough to then pin the whole, you tried to steal the election on Donald Trump. They didn't do a good enough job. Because I think the way that they're accusing Donald Trump of trying to steal the election, it was a little too complicated for the average person to understand. The average person doesn't understand.
Biden, you mean?
No. What I'm talking
Joe
about
Biden
is
stealing the election.
What I'm talking about is the way Democrats tried to paint Donald Trump for trying to steal the election after January 6th. In that case, they didn't do a good enough job of explaining it because most Americans kind of understand the Electoral College as an abstract, but they don't understand the Electoral College. You have 2 senators and 5 congressmen. That means you have 7 electoral votes. They don't understand where this whole idea comes from. And so because of that, them trying to pin the insurrection, I don't know, what is the word insurrection? I don't know what that word means. They're trying to pin electoral fraud. I don't know what that word means. Like, they don't know what these things mean. Hanging Chad, like, what's it, hanging Chad? They didn't do a good enough job of simplifying it. Does that make sense? Whereas when you think of Hunter Biden crack cocaine. You know what a laptop is. I know I'm being super reductive right now, but I'm being serious. When you think about low educated voter, I see a laptop that smoke crack. I know what prostitutes are. I know what crack is, and I know what a laptop is. Do you understand what I'm saying? I know it's so stupid and reductive, but they did a better job of painting that picture than the other side did. You see what I'm saying? Because what would have really hurt Trump is if he had said, get your guns and go down there to the Capitol and make them fucking pay. If he had said that, you'd be in trouble. But he went out there and he says peacefully. He says those words. It's really hard. I've seen insurrections in other countries, and they don't look like that. So I don't know. I still believe that an insurrection, Donald Trump creating an insurrection, is a function of perspective. I don't know you can objectively say he did that.
I think we can objectively say that he lied about the election being stolen weeks before the election even happened. I think
sure.
we can objectively agree with that.
From his perspective, maybe he thought that was true. Maybe it wasn't a lie. Maybe it was delusion on his part. Again, remember the difference is, for those of you who want to know, if you are being taught things that are wrong, that's not a delusion. That's misinformation. But maybe he
was being taught, like his daughter said it wasn't stolen. His daughter said Joe Biden was right.
And his secretary general and his vice president also said it wasn't stolen. I don't think it was stolen. I think he made some mistakes, and he was held accountable. In the end, though, he's going to have a pretty significant portion of 12 years to affect change that he may have not been able to affect in 8. So this may have worked out better for him in the end.
I also think the Republicans did a good job of pinning the narrative that all the shit that did happen under Joe Biden would not have happened had Trump been reelected. So, for example,
that's a comment.
War in Ukraine, still would have happened. Hamas would have still happened. Did you see how I see a lot of the conservatives, they're posting that now that Trump has gotten elected, he hasn't even taken office yet. War in Ukraine's going to end immediately. It's ending right now. Hamas wants a ceasefire right now. It's just ridiculous, bro. Did you see this stuff?
Not true. Yeah, I have seen it. I have people hit me up and be like, "No, it's immediate changes." I'm like, "That's not true. That's not what's going on."
Sure.
A lot of people
would have
from
invaded
Hamas,
no matter who was in office.
I just don't think you understand. People don't know how to use numbers. I'm reading this part of evolutionary psychology textbook where they go over humans not being able to understand statistics. They understand occurrence, but they don't understand statistics. Russia, if 35 or 25% of their GDP was coming from petroleum, and Eastern Europe was buying 35% of their oil through Russia, and 50% of Germany's oil was coming through Russia, and the pipelines were going directly through Ukraine, and Ukraine was going to sell their own oil, of course they were going to invade. I just don't understand how people can't do math and see that. Just imagine if the United States GDP came from picking bananas, and then one day somebody just said all the banana picking is going to happen in Mexico. The U.S. would go to war with Mexico. Yes, they would. I don't think you understand. If you just completely cripple a country's economy, that's what's going to happen, and that's what happened. Trump, not Trump, whatever, this was going to happen. This was an inevitability. And by the way, you want to know another inevitability? 50 years from now, Russia will invade Ukraine again. And you want to know another inevitability? 50 years from now, some Middle Eastern country will attack Israel, and they'll attack back. That's what's going to happen. I promise you. In 50 years from now, you want to know something else? China will threaten to go to nuclear war over Taiwan. 50 years from now, this will happen again. That's what will happen. And then people will come, oh my God, they'll never solve this. Bro, this thing between the Palestinians and the Israelites, go back and read the Old Testament, bro. That's the Canaanites and the Israelites. It goes all the way back to there, man. It's a 3,000-year-old push-pull going on there. Cool. Is there anything else you want to talk about, man?
I think we're good. I think we covered everything. But yeah, till next time, man. We'll do
okay,
some
brother.
virtual
Remember, guys,
talks.
don't be delusional. You should be able to talk to people who don't agree with you. And sex with people from the opposite political party is the best sex. I don't care what they say, especially with liberals, because they're crazy. Guys, I'll see you guys next time.
See you, man.
Take care. All right, don't leave. No.